Welcome back to Nas Delight African Folktales. Please subscribe to this channel. I have lived in this village for many years, and I've seen more than I care to remember. But there's one story that haunts me to this day, the tale of Fatima, the girl who thought her beauty was everything. Let me tell you what really happened, and perhaps you'll understand why people still speak of her in whispers, especially when the wind howls at night. Fatima was the daughter of a humble farmer and a trader. Her father worked the fields every day under the scorching sun, and her mother sold her vegetables at the marketplace from morning till evening. They weren't rich, but they made enough to get by. Still, from a young age, Fatima had always wanted more. She hated the sight of her father's rough hands, worn from years of labor, and her mother's tired eyes from long days of bargaining with customers. Fatima believed she was destined for a life far above what her parents had. And maybe she could have had it too, if only she wasn't so cruel. You see, Fatima was breathtakingly beautiful, and she knew it. Her dark skin shone in the sun, her eyes sparkled, and her long hair swayed with each step she took. Every man in the village admired her, and many had tried to win her heart, but Fatima rejected them all with a cruel laugh. One afternoon, Fatima and her two closest friends, Ada and Mary, were heading to the river to fetch water. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the land, and the air was thick with the sounds of the forest. As they walked along the dusty path, laughing and gossiping, a young man stepped out of the bushes. His name was Thomas, a hunter who lived on the edge of the village. His clothes were worn, and his face was smeared with dirt, but his eyes were kind, and he spoke with sincerity. "Good afternoon, ladies," Thomas greeted, his voice deep but gentle. "Fatima, I've admired you for a long time. I may not have much, but I work hard. I'm a hunter, and I can provide for you if you give me the chance." Fatima's friends giggled, but she wasn't amused. She looked at Thomas with disgust. "A hunter? You expect me to marry a man who lives off the forest like a wild animal? Look at you. Your clothes are dirty, and you smell of the bush." She turned to her friends, laughing mockingly. "Tell him to hunt himself a wife among the animals, because that's all he's fit for." The cruel words cut through the air like a knife, and Thomas lowered his head, his face burning with shame. He didn't say another word as he walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the forest. Fatima and her friends continued to laugh as they made their way to the river. That night, Thomas returned to Fatima's house, hoping to speak to her father. Maybe, just maybe, her parents could help her see that love was more important than riches. But when he knocked on the door, it was Fatima who answered. The moment she saw him standing there, she snapped. "Why are you here again?" she hissed, grabbing a bucket of water from the porch. "Didn't you hear me the first time? You're not worthy of even looking at me, let alone marrying me." Without waiting for an answer, Fatima threw the water in Thomas's face. He stood there, soaked and humiliated, as Fatima's laughter echoed in the night. He turned and walked away, his heart heavy with pain and anger. The next day, a fisherman named Joseph came to ask for Fatima's hand. He had heard the stories about her beauty and was convinced that his hard work on the river would be enough to win her over. But when he stood in front of her, offering her fresh fish and telling her of his trade, Fatima's response was even colder than before. "A fisherman? You smell worse than the river itself," she sneered. "Do you think I want to spend my life stinking of fish and watching you paddle in a wooden boat? Get out of my sight, before I make you regret ever speaking to me." Joseph left with his head hung low, but Fatima wasn't finished. Over the next few weeks, more men came, traders, farmers, even a young tailor who had saved every penny to buy her a fine piece of fabric. And each time, Fatima humiliated them, laughing with her friends and spreading cruel gossip about their poverty. She saw herself as untouchable, her beauty as a shield against any consequences. But she was wrong. Strange things began to happen after Fatima's last rejection. The village noticed it first in the wind. It started as a soft whistle at night, but soon grew louder, until it sounded like a scream through the trees. Fatima, however, ignored it all. She continued to reject every suitor, her laughter growing louder with each new humiliation. Fatima's parents had always been simple, hardworking people. They wanted nothing but the best for their daughter, though their idea of the best was very different from hers. Many nights, after the house had grown quiet and the lamps were dimmed, her father would sit her down, his face creased with worry. "Fatima," he'd say in his slow, thoughtful way, "a good man isn't just measured by his wealth. I know you want a better life than the one your mother and I have given you, but you have to look for kindness and respect, not just money. These things fade, but a good man stays with you." Her mother would often chime in, her voice softer but no less serious. "We are getting old, Fatima. We won't be here forever. You should find someone who will care for you, not just spoil you with riches." But Fatima would always wave them off with a laugh. "You don't understand. I deserve more than this. I won't settle for less." Her parents sighed. They had seen many suitors come and go, all turned away by Fatima's sharp tongue and unrealistic demands. Even her closest friends, Ada and Mary, tried to make her see reason. "Fatima, you're not getting any younger," Ada had warned one afternoon while they were fetching water from the river. "Soon, people will stop trying. You'll be left with no one." Mary nodded in agreement. "You could marry a kind man. Money isn't everything, Fatima. Think about it." But Fatima simply rolled her eyes. "I've told you both before, I'm waiting for someone worthy of me. You'll see." It seemed as though Fatima was destined to grow old and lonely, but then, one day, everything changed. It was a day like any other, the sun was high in the sky, and the village was alive with the usual hum of daily activity. Fatima was sitting outside her home, braiding her hair, when she heard the low growl of a car engine approaching. This alone was enough to turn heads. Cars were a rare sight in our village, especially ones that looked as sleek and polished as this one. Fatima's heart raced. Could this be it? Could this finally be the rich man she had been waiting for all her life? She stood up quickly, smoothing her dress as the car rolled to a stop in front of her house. The man who stepped out was tall, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit. His shoes shone so brightly they reflected the sun, and a gold watch gleamed on his wrist. Everything about him screamed wealth and power. Fatima's pulse quickened. He was exactly what she had dreamed of. The man smiled at her, and when he spoke, his voice was smooth like honey. "You must be Fatima. I've heard so much about you. My name is Daniel. I've just returned from the city, and I was hoping we could get to know each other better." Fatima could hardly contain her excitement. Here was a man who had everything: money, charm, looks. Without hesitation, she invited him inside, already imagining the life they would have together. Daniel spent the entire day at Fatima's house, charming her with tales of his life in the city. He spoke of business deals, fancy parties, and luxurious homes. He even showed her pictures on his phone of the cars and properties he claimed to own. Fatima was completely taken in. She didn't notice the way his eyes flickered nervously when he talked about his wealth, or the way he avoided answering direct questions about his work. She didn't care. As far as she was concerned, Daniel was perfect. For the next few weeks, Daniel continued to visit Fatima, each time arriving in the borrowed car, dressed in expensive clothes that weren't his. Fatima's parents were wary. They had seen many men come and go, but something about Daniel didn't feel right. "I don't trust him," her mother whispered one evening after Daniel had left. "There's something off about him. Where are his family? His friends? Why is he here alone?" But Fatima wouldn't listen. "You're just jealous because I finally found someone who's good enough for me," she snapped. "He's rich and successful. He's everything I've ever wanted." Her father shook his head. "We've warned you, Fatima. Not everything that glitters is gold." But Fatima was blinded by Daniel's false wealth. She had waited so long for a man like him that she refused to see the warning signs. Then, one fateful evening, Daniel proposed. He knelt in front of Fatima, holding out a small velvet box with a sparkling diamond ring inside. Fatima gasped. The ring was exactly what she had always dreamed of, a symbol of the life she had always wanted. "Fatima," Daniel said, his voice dripping with charm, "will you marry me? I want to give you the world." Fatima didn't hesitate. She threw her arms around him, nodding eagerly. "Yes. Yes, of course, I'll marry you." The wedding was planned quickly, and it was everything Fatima had imagined: lavish decorations, a beautiful dress, and a grand feast that the whole village attended. Daniel played his part well, smiling for the guests and showing off his borrowed car and clothes. But behind the scenes, there were whispers. People were starting to wonder who Daniel really was, and where all his supposed wealth had come from. But Fatima didn't care. She had finally won. She was marrying the rich man she had always dreamed of, and nothing else mattered. As the ceremony ended and the couple prepared to begin their new life together, the excitement in Fatima's eyes was undeniable. She had no idea that the life she thought she had secured was built on nothing but lies, and that the consequences of her choices were about to unfold in the most terrifying way. For now, she was blissfully unaware, but the village buzzed with curiosity, and the air was thick with the tension of secrets yet to be revealed. Thanks for watching. Please comment for part 2 in the comment section.